Good morning guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we are talking about how Postecoglou is going to impact Spurs. Recently announced as their new manager, I want to talk about what Spurs fans can expect really. You know, what sort of signings he'll want to bring, but more importantly the style of football that he will bring to the club. Now the first kind of thing we need to say before we get into it is that he will need time and he will need backing. More so than the previous managers. But if you were bored of managers like Mourinho and Conte, fear not. Postecoglou will bring entertainment, he will bring excitement, he will be charismatic in his interviews, he's got a really good personality, and he understands the importance of kind of embedding youth into his team. If given time, Postecoglou could do something very, very good with his team. So let's kind of talk about why we speak of him in glowing terms. And the first reason is because he has a very clear principle of how he wants to play. He isn't one of these managers which kind of chops and changes from system to system. Postecoglou has a very clear idea of the football he wants to play. Now, in terms of, what his side likes to do in possession, that's what we're going to focus on now. Normally, when we do this, I would initially start with how he likes his team to play out from the back. It's a little bit difficult to do with Postecoglou in terms of if we're basing it on his Celtic days, simply because not many teams put Celtic under too much pressure, which meant that on quite a regular basis, Celtic were able to build possession in quite a wide 2-3 shape, with the fullbacks playing in wide positions like this, the holding midfielder here and the two centre-backs, with the midfielders pushing a little bit higher. Now, this might be a system which works for Tottenham in the Premier League. The concern would be maybe it's a little bit too open. There will be a need for technical but also physical footballers in these positions, if this is the approach which Postecoglou wants to use it kind of moving forward. The other option for Postecoglou is to use much more narrower fullbacks, inverted fullbacks, and this is something which he tends to do higher up the pitch, so I don't see any reason why he wouldn't do it in deeper areas as well. When his side is in settled possession and they're looking to attack, this is the shape they use. It is very much a 2-3-5. The two centre-backs looking to kind of be good on the ball, technical players. Your two fullbacks then kind of taking it in turns to invert alongside the holding midfielder. Your two number 8s pushing forward inside the wingers, your wingers holding the width, and then your number 9 up front. This is the idea of what Postecoglou wants to do. It's obviously a shape we've seen a few top teams using in recent years. Arsenal have done it over the past few seasons, Manchester United have done it at times, but Pep Guardiola is the main one who in the past has liked this 2-3-5 shape. Now the idea behind this for Postecoglou is that in central areas you get a lot of players really close to each other. The 6, the 2-8s, but also the inverted fullbacks means that there is potential for a lot of combinations in the middle of the pitch. Quick passing football, getting the ball forward at speed. Now, the other important thing with this formation is that the wingers are nice and high and wide, which makes a really easy ball progression in wide areas. With the right back inverted, it will often drag the opposition player a little bit narrower, making it very easy to pass the ball up the line from where your winger can then attack. And that's exactly what Postecoglou will want his side to do. He will want front-footed attacking football. No more of this boring, back 5 defensive football. Postecoglou has a clear way of playing. Get the ball forward and attack the opposition, hurt the opposition. And this 2-3-5 shape is of course a good way of doing that. You've got the compactness and the combinations in the middle of the pitch to move the ball forward, as well as this winger threat kind of in these wide areas. Now, as a result of this, Postecoglou's side are good at getting the ball forward and into the final third, from where he likes to attack with a front 5, with the two midfielders pushing forward to join the front line. And then of course the rest of the team will back up as well, with a really high engaging line. Now the benefit of this is that most teams in the Premier League do defend with a back 4, which looks a little bit like this. This means that if Spurs are to attack with a front 5 under their new manager, they will overload most teams which they attack. For example, you've got the winger here, you've got a midfielder in this space here, striker in this space here, midfielder in this space, and then another winger here. If you have it 5 versus 4, somewhere you will have the spare man, somewhere you will have the overload. And this is why I see a world where Postecoglou could score goals with this Spurs team. I think there will be a lot of goals. Now, the question is, does he have the players to do it? This is his philosophy. He is very, very unlikely to kind of adapt from that, shift away from it. It's not what he does. He is very clear, he's very clear-minded, strong-minded. This is his way of playing. This is what he has his mind set on. Does he have the players to do it with Spurs? Well, that is where the bigger question mark comes in. In terms of his principles, his style of play, I really do like it. And, it does kind of fit the mould of what we see a lot of elite teams doing over the past few seasons. The question is, does he have the players? Because Spurs over the past few seasons have been set up to be pragmatic, a bit boring, a bit dull, a bit defensive, and often in either a back 3 or a back 5. That's not going to work under Postecoglou. So I want to look at some of the players which might fit the system, some of the players which won't, and, it's going to be quite clear why he really needs to be backed. Before we continue with the analysis, I want to talk to you guys about JerseyFIFA.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that's the latest home shirts, the latest away shirts, tracksuits, or even retro kits, Jersey FIFA has a bit of everything. There really is something for everyone, so if you are interested, then make sure to use the link in the description down below and head to JerseyFIFA.com. So the best way to look at what Postecoglou will need with this Spurs side is really to build from back to front, look at the profiles he wants in his squad, and assess whether or not Spurs have it. We start off with the goalkeeper. Postecoglou wants that modern day goalkeeper, a ball player, someone who sweeps up behind his defence, very much in the mould of the modern goalkeeper. Does Hugo Lloris do that? Is Hugo Lloris staying at the club? The answer to them, I think, is both no. So Spurs will need a new goalkeeper of some description. Today we're not going to discuss targets. If you want a separate video on that, you can let me know in the comments down below. We haven't got time to do it today. But Spurs will need a new goalkeeper. Moving on at centre-back, Romero looks like quite a good fit. He is better in a back three, but in terms of what he does on the ball, he's very technical, very aggressive in the way that he defends and approaches the game. I think he would be a good player. And I also think Longley could be decent as well. Now, of course, this is only if Spurs make the move permanent, but I would be tempted to. Longley is good on the ball, he's a good passer of the ball, and being left-footed as well, it opens up the angles quite nicely. I could see Longley working with the club. At right back, Pedro Porro. Is he naturally an inverted fullback? Probably not, he prefers to get forward a bit more. But he is really very technical. Personally, I think, and when you consider he's only just been signed in January as well, I would stick with Pedro Porro and try and train him into this inverted fullback position. I think kind of based on his skill set, I do think that he could do it. So let's kind of see how that develops. In terms of at left back, there's a lack of options. One option is Perisic. Can Perisic play as an inverted fullback? Not in my opinion, I just don't see it happening. So Tottenham either need a new left back, or they need to trust Ben Davies in this position. So, personally, I would be signing a new left back just because the strength of that back four looks a little bit weak compared to the top teams. But we could see Ben Davies playing that role. So we've got our two inverted fullbacks here, we've got our two ball-playing centre-backs. So far, we definitely need a goalkeeper for Spurs, maybe a left centre-back, depending on the Longley situation, and maybe a left back as well. Now we move into the midfield, where we have to ask the question, do Spurs have this holding midfielder, the one who really sets the tempo, is metronomic in possession, has a lot of touches on the ball, a lot of passes, and really sets the tempo? Do Spurs have that in their club? I'm not sure they do. If we kind of go through a few of the players, is Oliver Skip that? Not in my opinion. Is Bentancur that? Not right now, but maybe he could be developed into it. Is Højbjerg that? Probably not. He's decent defensively, but I don't think he's good enough on the ball for what would be wanted in this system. And kind of the same for Bissouma as well. He's very good. He hasn't really blossomed at Spurs in the way that we had hoped. Are any of these the sixes which are needed at Spurs? I'm not sure. Although based on what we're going to see in the rest of the video, I probably would go with one of these three because signings will be needed in other positions on the pitch. So I would go for probably Bissouma as the holding midfielder, maybe Bentancur, though it could change. Next up, we need two 8s who are going to push forward. We were seeing it earlier, these players push high into the channels, they're there for underlaps, creating the front five, lots of output in the final third. This is another area where Spurs lack players. And now you can see why I am saying that Postecoglou needs to be given a lot of time and a lot of backing. This isn't a 3-month fix. By August, this will not be fixed. Spurs won't have all the players that they need. This will be a few-year project which needs to take place. And that will be disappointing for Spurs fans to hear, but unfortunately for them, that is the situation they are in. The club has got it wrong ever since Pochettino left. The team's been stalling, it's got really stale, it's really not a very nice squad at all, it's not well balanced, it's only really suited to a back five, so it will take time to get back to the system that they want. Perhaps actually looking at it like this, Højbjerg comes out of the team, and maybe you go for Bissouma as an 8, Bentancur as your holding midfielder. Something like that could work, but I think there is certainly the need for a creative midfielder to be brought into the side, someone who can really push forward and contribute in the attack. Again, we're not going to discuss targets today, we could do that in another video, but maybe someone like James Maddison, relegated with Leicester, could be a shout for that position. Next up we have our front three. Now what do we need from our front three? We need wingers which are going to play wide and take on their men in 1-versus-1 situations. And again, I'm actually not convinced that Spurs have that. In Heung-min Son and Kulusevski, there's two players who like to come inside. Kulusevski particularly in the half spaces, Heung-min Son playing as more of an inside forward. However, again, the fact that this is a long-term project, a project which will take time, this isn't the area which I would be prioritising. So personally, I would secure Kulusevski on the permanent transfer, and I would stick with Heung-min Son on the left wing. Because always you will see combinations and rotations, so there will be times when they can come inside and do damage in these areas. So that is what I would be going for. And I also think maybe in the long term, Kulusevski could be moulded into one of these players in this area. So we would see on that. Then we've got the big one, Harry Kane up top. Is Harry Kane the right striker? Realistically, yes, Harry Kane is the right striker for most teams. He's the best striker in the world, probably. However, I think what we see with where Spurs are at right now, you know, we're saying they need a goalkeeper, maybe a left centre-back, maybe a left-back, 1, 2, maybe even 3 midfielders. There is that temptation to sell Harry Kane for about £100 million, rather than losing him on a free next summer. Get the 100 million now and invest it in your squad. It is something which I would be very tempted to do if I was Spurs, because personally, I think in this system, Richarlison would be very good. Kind of the main idea in this system is that your striker scores the goals. They're not dropping in super deep, they're scoring goals. Richarlison could do that very well, so I would be tempted to sell Harry Kane to generate the funds to build the rest of the squad, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. In terms of how this squad is looking, how would this squad play, it's a bit jumbled, and this is why it's a long-term project. Give Postecoglou the time he needs and he will change this team. So many of these players will not be in the starting 11. The question is, will he be given the time? Personally, I'd quite like to see it, but it does mean that Spurs have to accept that as a result of getting it wrong for 4 or 5 years, you're now going to have to wait another 3 or 4 years to be at the top level, because right now they are not a top 6 club in the Premier League. There are comfortably 6 teams, if not more, that are better than them. So they need to take the time, build this squad properly. You know, like I said, this team will change a lot, because what Postecoglou will want to do in the long term is have this 2-3-5. The fullbacks which are truly inverted fullbacks, a 6 which really wants to dictate the game, midfielders which thrive in the channels and making underlapping runs, wingers which want to be in 1 versus 1 situations, and a goal scorer up front. He would also want his team to counter-press super high up the pitch, and that is something which I think we will see implemented pretty quick, because his teams are really good on the counter-press. So there are short-term things that we will see. The question really is kind of just how long it's going to take. If Postecoglou is given time, I think we will see the Spurs team moving back in the right direction and going on a similar trajectory to what they did under Pochettino all those years ago. There will be a focus on trying to develop young players, unknown players a little bit. For example, Spurs signing Dele Alli back in the day, that's the sort of signing which we could see a bit more. Developing these unknown players and turning them into real gems. He will want his team pulling in the same direction, working hard in and out of possession, direct attacking football but with nice short passing as well, and also real dangerous counter-pressing, high up the pitch, high energy to win the ball back. Postecoglou's stint at Spurs will be very entertaining. The length and the extent of his stint at the club will depend on the backing. That, for me, is the big question mark. Personally though, if I was a Spurs fan, I would be more excited about this project than what I had been since Pochettino left the club. I think it's a real chance for the club to move in the right direction, get their philosophy and their identity back to what it should be, get their focus in the right place. Postecoglou is the right man to make that happen. The board and the owners is who I would be more concerned about. But that's all I've got to say for today's video. If you are a Spurs fan, get in the comments down below. What do you think on the Harry Kane situation? What do you think on Postecoglou? Does it fill you with confidence, or do you not think he's had enough experience at the very top level? And also, let me know some signings that you would like to see in some of these positions. For example, like I said already, someone like Maddison could be quite a nice signing. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. But apart from that, I'm finished for today, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and as always, I will see you in the next one.